Freelancers, small business owners, consultants, and solopreneurs. Some people are just drawn to working for themselves. I'm Owen Roth. In this show, I have conversations with self-employed folks about their career journeys. Welcome to the Bossless Path podcast. And here we go. Today I'm joined by Chance Olufson, owner of Cascara Films LLC. Chance, thanks for being here.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, so I run Cascara Films here in Corvallis. We're a video production company, and we focus on like higher end commercial work for the most part. Do some wedding work and like photography and other things on the side, but mainly it's like higher end production, commercial work.
We have a little bit of crossover between what you and I do, but
yeah, we do.
From what I've seen of your work, you do very high quality work too.
Thank you. That's the goal.
It's interesting, and I haven't been doing this as long as you have full time. But it's interesting to see like the gamut of like different video producers and like where you have to position yourself.
Yeah.
Was that always a goal of yours, is to target the high end?
I'm kind of a perfectionist. I found it difficult to not go for that market when I was starting out. And to be honest, it was kind of I thought I was going to do photography when I was getting into it.
Oh, really?
And then I was like, there's a ton of photographers. This is a waste of time. So I should do video because there's not that many videographers around that I could find. So it was a very like analytical and arguably stupid reason to get into it. But once I actually started, I realized I loved doing it. And the higher quality target market and value proposition was kind of a byproduct because that was just what I wanted to do. I wanted to make the best thing that I could. So we kind of worked our way up, used nicer equipment, and have worked with some larger clients, but it's a process, and we're still working on that.
There's a lot of parallels I can draw from how I'm starting to shape my business, and what you just described is just like, well, this is what I want to do. I'm a perfectionist. I like doing high quality stuff.
Exactly.
And I cringe when I see like, I don't know, without naming any names, like lower quality like productions, and I'm just like, oh, people paid money for that, but I mean, they probably paid much less than I would charge.
Exactly. So, I mean, you really do get what you pay for. I can't make something look like a $10,000 budget with a $300 budget.
Not without going out of business.
Exactly. Yeah. So we take a lot longer for each production now than I did when I was starting out. Like when I was getting started, a production would be an afternoon, start to finish. But now it can be several days or a week for one client.
Right.
Which is also just kind of a byproduct of targeting that higher end market with different needs.
Yeah. Could you share like the type of video productions you do? Like what markets? I know weddings, you do a little bit of that, but not solely weddings.
A little bit. And weddings too, we don't do that many because I just haven't been advertising for it. And so sometimes we'll get an inquiry, like a referral from a photographer that I've worked with, but I just don't market for that. So we've been focusing on the commercial work. You get a ton of variety. So I've worked with like the Knights, the local baseball team. I work with Team K Realty on... I actually don't shoot house videos for them, which is funny. I do all the other videos.
Real estate you're talking about when you say houses.
Yeah. I don't shoot like the video tours of the houses. I shoot like marketing content for his YouTube channel and stuff. And like Weston and I just worked on a project with a physical therapy clinic in town, which is kind of different. So, we don't get to do a lot of like sports and physical activity related things, but that was a nice change of scenery. And we also shot for a bunch of wineries this summer, which was new. That was pretty cool. Like 15 or 20 wineries.
Oh, wow.
Which is
That's awesome.
Kind of crazy. Yeah, it was a very busy schedule in August.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I keep referring to Weston because he's who I'm usually working with. But
okay, I was going to ask that. Yeah, I know who Weston is, but maybe you could explain.
For those of you that aren't familiar, Weston is he's my unofficial business partner, I guess. He owns Flare West Media, and he and I do a lot of work together and have for a number of years. So he's my business partner.
Consistent collaborators.
Exactly. Consistent collaborator. Yeah. So he'll come up many times, I'm sure.
Sure. How did you guys originally start collaborating?
So we met on Instagram.
Okay, that happens.
Yeah. And I'm going to tell you the real story because I finally told him and he thought it was funny.
I'm excited.
I saw his posts on Instagram of his drone photography. This was back when I was very early into doing my drone photography. I thought I was going to be a drone photographer. I didn't even, at this point, video was an afterthought.
That's actually how I got my first drone last year too. But yeah,
Really?
continue. Anyways.
And I saw him posting his stuff. And up until this point, I had only seen local photographers posting stuff. I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. But not really much drone stuff. And when I did see drone stuff, no offense to them, but it didn't really impress me. So I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm good. Whatever. I had already kind of decided I wanted to go for like the higher quality market. And then I saw Weston stuff and it was amazing. I was like, oh no. So I
So you
befriended him
bullied him?
because I
No.
felt I was like, he's too good to be against me, so I need to be his friend.
Smart.
Yeah, which sounds awful, but we're very good friends.
Yeah, no, it's I mean, it's better than cyberbullying him out of existence.
So your work is terrible. You
Yeah.
should go do something else.
Yeah.
No, I honestly, yeah, I just saw his work. I was impressed and I messaged him and then he came over to my place and we flew some drones and have worked together ever since.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really cool to hear that like people do connect on social media that in that capacity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I don't have any direct connection like that. It's always like informal introductions, but that's awesome because you guys have been doing great work for years now. So
So, yeah.
I'm only starting to do video again in the past year or so after taking a 12 whatever year hiatus and only doing photography. But what I found, especially in that photography focused period, was the core fundamentals of image making, whether it's photography or videography, are the same. But when you work in different genres, and you just mentioned winery,
Yeah.
sometimes you go in, you realize that you really have to like learn a whole skill set of how to cover that new material if it's that much different. Did you find that?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is interesting. You have to, like you said, kind of learn a new skill set for every type of thing that you do. Like we shot for the Knights for a couple years. I'm just using the baseball as an example. The first year we didn't know what we were doing. We were running around like headless chickens with cameras trying to get random shots. And then after we did the post for the first time we did that, then we were like, okay, these were the good shots. These are where we need to be. And then the next year we like turned it up a notch and we're able to be like, okay, we got to be here for this, here for this. I want to shoot with this lens for this shot. Like we just kind of went in knowing what we were doing. And with a few years of experience under my belt, I don't need as much like calibration time, if you will, in a new area. But it's still there for sure. Like, on Winery 10, we had it down. We were like, okay, we're gonna come in, we're gonna get shots of the grapes, and then we're gonna go get an interview, and then we're gonna go get shots in the tasting room, and that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
So, and that project too was for the AVA. So we were shooting at a bunch of wineries for one client.
What's the AVA?
Essentially, it's just a group of like wineries and other tourist related businesses in an area. And so there's a number of them around here, but we worked with the Eola Amity Hills AVA.
Gotcha.
So we were just getting a bunch of footage from a huge number of wineries for one of their projects.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Very cool. I started shooting footwear for a couple, like 2 or 3 years, photography for footwear. And like, I had never done anything like that. I'm like, oh, it'll be easy. But I'm like, oh, it's actually quite hard. And I found the same thing. There was a certain point where like I had enough experience after X amount of time.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, now it's easy. But at the beginning, I'm like, oh, I'm shooting a product that's like on the ground or near the ground. And it's very difficult, even though I'd been, shooting photography for 10 whatever years. It was a new challenge and it kind of like threw me for a loop. That was the first time I did something so out of my realm that I was surprised at the challenge I had.
I've kind of noticed that with equipment as well. Like
Yeah.
on the creative side, there's definitely that adjustment that you need to do when you start something new, but learning how to kind of leverage your gear has been something that I've switched through a few different like setups, if you will, of like different gear through the years. And every time I kind of need to recalibrate how I plan to use my equipment to get the shot. Because I can envision the same shot, but the way I would get it if I'm shooting on the Reds is very different from the way I get it on the Sony. So that was an interesting thing too, is going back and forth between those systems. I need to recalibrate how I'm planning for my shots, even if it's for the same client.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the Reds don't have autofocus and they require a much bigger stabilizer and bigger batteries. So you need to like think differently about power management. You need to think differently about how long you can hold it.
Hmm.
And like if I want to get a gimbal shot on the Red, it's like an hour to assemble the rig, and then you need at least one other person and probably 5 or 6 tries because you have to manually like pull your focus.
Pull focus remotely with the other person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
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 And
So,
then you need batteries to support 2 monitors, video transmitters, the focus puller, everything. Whereas the Sony, it's like you throw the battery in, stick your lens on, stick it on a little gimbal, and you run, and you're done.
mhm. Again, I have relatability in the gear thing. I started to work a little bit with the College of Engineering here at OSU, doing some video stuff over the past few months. I think the first day of production I worked with them, like there was a student employee who was shooting, and like he was just using I don't know what it was, some Sony, maybe like a 63 something that was like,
Yeah.
and he just had it on a gimbal, and he was so much more nimble than like the setup I had. I had my like Canon all rigged out and stuff, and when we were doing run and gun B-roll, I was embarrassingly immobile, and the amount of shots he got with his just working with his camera on a gimbal, no external monitors, no anything else.
Yeah.
He just was able to get much more coverage and quality coverage than I was when I'm just lugging around this big giant thing and like trying to manually pull focus. And it was like a little bit of a reality check, like shooting footwear, where I'm just like, oh man, I need to adapt, have a little bit more forethought how I approach situations and stuff. And like it's not always necessarily like the more gear and better gear you have actually equates to a better product.
Yeah.
Especially when there's time considerations and
Absolutely.
and logistics like that.
Yeah, we're a lot more efficient when we shoot on the Sonys, and it kind of goes both ways though. Like,
Sure.
I've noticed that the autofocus of the Sonys can be really, really good for getting some shots a lot more efficiently, but at the same time, like if I'm shooting around multiple people, and the face detect autofocus will start like firing off and going to multiple people, and then you got to put it in manual, and then you're fighting the camera. Whereas if I was shooting on the Red that doesn't have autofocus, or if I just got into it turning it off, like I'm not wasting time fighting it. I'm able to just pull it and get the shot. But then if you're shooting something like sports, that it's the opposite, right? You're fighting your manual focus to get a good shot when the autofocus would just like clean house.
It's also interesting, kind of expanding on that topic, just like how we, well, and I say we like the creatives, but also you and me, we seem to adapt like the tools that we have and the things at our disposal to like, it's a constantly ongoing like evolution and progression.
Yeah.
Or maybe not even progression like in the linear sense of like more and stuff, but like just a progression of just like how we're creating and like what tools we're using and processes.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have the master checklist now. It's like 10 pages of equipment, just like line by line. And before every shoot, I'll go through and for each piece of like all the way down to like SD cards. And like, does this make sense to have? Yes or no? And I'll check it off and throw it in the pile.
Oh, that's smart. I should start doing that. Okay.
I don't use it for everything, but every time I'm like, I don't need it. This is a simple one. I forget something. So it's just like a rolling list. If I sell something or buy something, it gets added or subtracted from the list. And it's tedious. It's very, very tedious trying to pack like that, but then you don't miss stuff.
Yeah.
And it took me forgetting equipment on several shoots to actually be like, okay, I'm not infallible. I need to use a checklist. So that was a good implementation.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I might need to do that because I've definitely I don't know what's going on lately. But my memory definitely is not what it seems like it used to be. Maybe it's I had COVID last year. Maybe there's some long-term effects of that. I don't know. Or maybe it's just like I'm at the point where I've got too much going on in my life that I can't remember stuff. But I've been in that position where I've like forgot a really basic piece of equipment, whether it's just like, some piece of rigging that costs like $10 and it's just a piece of metal that's shaped the right way to help me attach this to that.
Exactly.
And it's at home. And I'm just like, I can't believe that I forgot that thing. And it's so simple.
Yeah.
And it's like the most basic piece of my gear, but it's kind of fundamental to a degree of what I'm trying to do here. And now I have to figure it out.
Yeah.
Those are embarrassing moments and
Yep.
not very professional looking. So
I know.
yeah, the checklist is a smart idea.
Let's give it a try. It's tedious, but it works.
Yeah. I think when you get to a certain level of like having gear, and we're both guys who like gear, I think. So,
oh yeah. Total gearhead.
yeah. So I think it makes sense at that point for sure.
Yeah.
So let's go back, if you wouldn't mind walking us through how you got to today as far as your career.
It's going to sound kind of funny. In high school, I thought my career path was going to be either airline pilot or aerospace engineer. I wanted to go like work for NASA or SpaceX or go fly big planes. And I eventually ruled out airlines because I didn't want to be away from home that much. I didn't really have very set plans for my future, but I knew that being away for 4 days a week or something was not going to work for me. So I kind of ruled that one out. And then aerospace engineer, I decided I wanted to go to school for something that I was really interested in, which that was, but I ended up going to OSU for physics, and I did one term and hated it. I was miserable. I loved the material. I hated how they were teaching it.
Oh, okay.
Not that I know better than them, but I didn't.
It wasn't a
enjoy
good fit. Yeah.
So, I guess that was how I ruled out my other career options. But when I was in high school, my grandpa actually came home with a little Parrot Bebop 2 drone.
Okay,
it was like the first drone I'd ever seen that had a camera on it that would like downlink to your phone and you could watch while you're flying it. I was so into that. Dude,
Oh, yeah.
I loved it. So I flew it all the time. I had been flying the model airplanes for many years leading up to that.
Okay.
It was around that point that I kind of learned what a Part 107 certificate was. And it's like the commercial drone license. And just making sure people know.
Yeah. No. I was going to, if you didn't touch on it, I was going to.
It's what lets me fly the drones for commercial purposes. And when I was a senior in high school, I took the test and got that license and bought a Mavic Air, like the OG Mavic Air.
Yeah, this is one of the drones that is actually tailored towards capturing images versus the Bebop drone you said that you had, which is probably more of just a toy.
It was more of a toy.
Yeah.
It was like 1080p, very wide angle warped.
Yeah.
It was, looking back, it was pretty bad. But at the time, revolutionary.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So, yeah, I flew the Mavic Air for a few months, and then I kind of settled in. I was like, okay, this is cool. I love taking pictures. I like shooting videos. I'm making some money. And I decided to invest into my Mavic 2 Pro, which is still the oldest piece of gear I own. Still use that.
Yeah.
And this was in 2019. So like fall of 2019 was when I was actually getting hired for that.
What were you finding as far as gig-wise?
You know, I don't remember how I was finding the gigs at this point, but I was shooting some real estate, and I think the transformative gig for me, I didn't even get paid for it. I just volunteered, but I did all the aerials for the Best in the West triathlon meet.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with that, but
I know my brother and sister-in-law ran in it, or I've done one of the triathlon events, years ago. Yeah.
I went out there, just took my drone, volunteered, and they set me up with the Broden Creative Media team that was there. I think they might have also been volunteering, but I had never worked with a camera crew before. And so I was there going to do my thing, but then I got to go like ride in their car as they went and used the gimbal, stuck the cameras out the window and filmed the cyclists and everything. And I was over flying over the water, like recording the swimmers and stuff. And that just blew my mind. I was like, I could get paid to do this.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So it was also at that point that I kind of realized like I'm getting hired for like maybe a couple $100 to fly my drone for these production companies that either don't have a 107 or don't have a drone. And I was like, I could make a lot more money if I just bought the camera too and did it all. So it was kind of a business decision moving from strictly aerials to the full service.
Sure.
And from there, I mean, I didn't go to school for it. There was a lot of YouTube involved. and a lot of like trial and error and just practice. And from there, it kind of grew into what I just do that full time and
Right.
self-employed, which worked out for the best because it turns out I enjoy being self-employed most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, that's pretty much how I got here. It was like early 2020, I bought my first Sony mirrorless camera, and from there, it's just been growing the business.
It's interesting to hear that you got into it and like were in your heavy growth period just as the pandemic was happening.
Yeah, that was really great.
Yeah.
So great.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. But you sounds like you weathered it. You're doing well. And it wasn't like, oh, now the pandemic's here. I'm just kind of getting started and discovering this and I have to like shut down. But it sounds like you were able to push through that till today.
When everything shut down, that sucked, man. I lost a lot of big contracts. At least at the time, they were big contracts. But I was very upset.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You know, as things kind of recovered, I was still just chipping away. And part of that too was like I was at that point I wasn't in school anymore. I did my 1 term of physics and then transferred to the College of Business at OSU.
Okay.
And did I think it was about a year of that. Or maybe not quite, but I did a few terms there, and I finally decided that online classes were not for me, and just I just stopped registering. I was like, this is not for me. So it did help that I didn't have that many bills to pay. I was still like I had been in school, and then in the pandemic, I was living at home, so I was just kind of like all of that revenue from the jobs I was able to get were able to go into growing like my equipment and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which I'm going to be honest, it definitely helped.
Sure.
If I had to be paying rent, I probably would not have been able to weather that at the stage that my business was in.
Right.
It was still kind of a little infant business.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's where it has to start.
Yeah.
For pretty much anyone.
I do think that is why I was able to kind of stick it out until I got to the point of now making enough that it can be my full time.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes when you're handed a situation, if it's something that you can take advantage of, with caveats of the morally, like,
of course.
Done correctly. But then that's what it is, and that's what it is, and you take advantage of it. So
exactly.
Yeah, it's great to hear that you came through that and you're doing well now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know a lot about your parents, but I do know that they're also entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Was that an influence on you at all?
Kind of. They own and run several jewelry stores, so it's a little different than video production. I think the biggest influence from that was just seeing that it is in fact possible to start and build a thriving business. And they're doing very well. And that was, it was, I think it gave me like that hope that I needed that it's possible. When I was first starting out, and, I'm stubborn. I was like, I'm going to do this, but seeing them and, how they're able to do that. And then of course, getting advice from them, when I need it about owning a business is very valuable too. Yeah,
I'm sure.
Not that everything translates perfectly. But.
No, of course. I mean, every business and endeavor is different already, but yeah, it's. I was just curious asking because for myself, I don't. My dad's academic. He's a professor and or retired now for many years, but and my mom was a nurse, so it's like there wasn't direct relatability. And it's interesting because my brother's gone in kind of following the footsteps of my dad, not teaching the same thing, but in the academic sphere. And it's so much different than what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
And one of the many things I admire about you is at your age, you seem like, you say stubborn, and maybe that is accurate, but also like confident enough. And there's overlap, stubbornness, confidence, whatever. But you're confident enough that you're going for it. You did go for it as far as trying to do it full time, and you're finding success. And that's really cool to like see and hear about, because that's something that I didn't have, that certainly the confidence at your age, to do. I did have like a little video production business with some friends in college. I very much had it with friends, and like I was the one who's always wanted to push it but they always were holding it back because they weren't fully in it. They're just like, oh, we'll just make a little bit of money while we're in college.
Yeah.
And I didn't have the confidence at that age to just be like, all right, well, we're not on the same page as business partners, so I'm just going to go on by myself. But I didn't have the confidence at that age to do that. It wasn't until, a decade and a half later till now that I had that confidence. And yeah, it's cool to see that you're able to just go for it. So,
well, thank you.
Yeah.
It helped getting to work with people like Weston.
Mm-hmm.
So for a long time, I don't feel like I did have that confidence to go do it all by myself. I met him while I was still just doing the drone stuff, and he and I would go and shoot together. I didn't feel like I could handle it by myself.
Yeah.
And going and shooting with him, where we could like bounce ideas off of it, it felt like that was like the security that I needed, was to go shoot with at least one other person.
Gotcha.
And that has since changed. But like I've noticed I have gained the wisdom to know when something is over my head, because the first maybe 2 years or so, everything felt intimidating. So I didn't know when to actually listen to that.
Okay.
I was like, yeah, I have to do it. It's intimidating. Like it's the work. I got to go do it. But sometimes I would get in over my head, and I feel like I'm finally now, almost 5 years into this, like starting to have the wisdom to know the difference.
Yeah.
When a project is just a little too big, which it doesn't happen often, but sometimes things come up.
Sure. That's really interesting to hear. Yeah. So like you didn't know what you didn't know back then, and now
I'm starting to know what I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. That's interesting. So yeah, that probably makes you just a better business operator, let alone the creative side of things, I'm guessing.
I hope.
Yeah.
I hope so.
I would imagine so.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you find that do you feel like you have comfortability? Don't know if comfortability is a word, but
we'll roll with it.
We'll just go with it. Exactly. In like the business realm as well as the creative realm, because I know a lot of creatives, like, they're drawn to what they do because they're just like, they like the creative stuff and then they don't want to touch the business side of stuff.
Yeah.
How do you find that balance in your strengths and discomforts?
I feel like I'm fairly comfortable and I hope competent in both realms, but I actually think I lean more towards the business side of things, and like the accounting and like the administrative stuff, where I'm like answering emails, talking with clients, doing consultations. I love that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't always love answering emails, but like
yeah, but throw it into the corner and be like, I'll deal with that later.
No.
Yeah.
I think I struggle more with the creative side, the feeling of like the imposter syndrome. Like I have no problems booking a client, but as soon as we're on set with something unfamiliar, I get nervous.
Oh, interesting.
Which usually I'm shooting with somebody else and we can handle it just fine.
Sure.
And having almost 5 years of shoots under my belt now helps, which it feels like a long time until I say, oh, 5 years. It's like, that's nothing.
It's all contextual, right? I
Yeah.
mean, yeah.
Compared to me with 2 years of experience, it's a big difference.
Absolutely.
I think I struggle more with the confidence in the creative side still. But the experience helps.
I feel like I personally have issues too with the creative sometimes. I view myself as a creative person and a problem solver, and that's one of the reasons why like self-employment's attractive to me, is being able to, because that's what self-employment is, right? Is you're constantly solving problems, whether you're in a creative field or not. Yeah. And that's attractive to me, and I feel like I'm good at it. But then sometimes you just show up for whatever project, it could be a video project or a photo shoot for me, and I'm just like, man, I'm kind of at a loss of like how to approach this. But the funny thing is, I don't think I've ever actually finished whatever project it is and turned it into a client. And I've never had a client come back and like, it's not right. Or I don't like that. It's like, it's always turned out well, but there frequently enough seems to be that moment of like being on location during production where I'm just like, wait, am I supposed to be here? Like, yeah, the imposter syndrome. It's weird. I would think it would have dissipated years ago, but it hasn't quite fully gone yet.
I don't know if it ever will.
Yeah. Maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Maybe that
keeps you on your toes.
Exactly, yeah. I don't know.
Totally.
Yeah, we'll have to talk in 20 years when we're both like seasoned veterans and
exactly.
See where we're at then about the mindset.
the check-in.
Yeah. How do you find your clients? Like, are you I know like one of the reasons you said that you didn't want to become a commercial pilot was because you didn't want to be gone all the time.
Yeah.
But we both live in Corvallis here. It's not a hotbed of video production. I know that you've done some projects up and down the Willamette Valley. Do you find that you do have to go out of town a lot?
Yeah. Typically, I'm not shooting many days a week. So it's still not quite to the level of like airline pilot job.
Gone like on the road most of the time.
There was 1 week this summer that was awful. I had 6 shoots in 1 week.
In 1 week?
Yep.
Wow.
2 of them in 1 day. That was awful. But usually it's not like that. Usually it's like maybe 1 a week. So I do have to travel a lot though. A lot of my client work is not here in Corvallis. So surprisingly though, not a lot in Portland either. It's usually like Salem, sometimes Eugene. I do a decent amount of work in Newport, depending on the time of year. So it varies, and most of that comes in from referrals or like return clients. It kind of depends on what the work is.
Sure.
That was a lot of my work, especially later this year. And a big part of that, I think, is I've been dropping the ball on my own marketing, which is very, very ironic. So that's my focus going into the slow like winter months. That's kind of been my focus, is putting together that content so that I can like actually utilize my business's social medias and stuff. Because honestly, it's kind of embarrassing making social media content for clients, but then not posting anything myself ever.
I can totally relate to that. It's difficult though. I mean, like it's super difficult is like essentially solopreneurs. You got to like handle the clients and booking the communication and then actually completing projects and then like having time to market as well.
I already have a tight schedule as it is. And I want to do it so that I have more consistency in my work, because I'm not dealing with like a lack of clients, but they come in waves. And I figure if I do my own marketing and actually put some effort into making the marketing consistent, I can make the inquiries more consistent as well, or at least even them out over those dips. I don't know if you experience that, but I go through like 2 to 3 month peaks and troughs.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have that, but I definitely do.
I haven't been doing it long enough full time to really like draw that conclusion. I did. It was interesting. At the beginning of this year, there was like a period where it was like in a week, maybe it was like a 10-day period. I had like 5 gigs booked, and like they all came out. One of them was like booked like, a month in advance. And then the other, whatever, 4 or so came up like within days of when the production was going to happen. And it was that cocktail of emotion where I'm just like, oh my God, it's like, this is awesome. Like what happened here that I just got like a bunch of bookings next week, and I'm going to make like more now in this week than I have in the past whatever months combined.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially coming out of winter. And then, and it was also super stressful because I'm just like, I'm not acclimated to like having back-to-back shoots and then producing the deliverables on the post-production side. It was stressful. It was exciting. Well, maybe I've made it. Maybe I've got like a flow of work. And then outside of booking some events for like a couple months out, I didn't have anything, no paid stuff for like over a month, I think. I'm like, oh, I thought we were going into summer and I'd be busier. So it was weird. And then coming into after the summer wrapped up in 2023, going into the fall, I'm like, okay, well, I didn't have a ton of business this year, but maybe I'll have like, and winter's gonna be slow, right? Fall, winter are gonna be slow. Yeah. I just assumed. And then all of a sudden I'm like, got some consistent work at OSU, some freelancing stuff. I'm just like, I didn't expect this. So it's like, and I don't think I should expect that. Like, I don't think that'll happen, every fall, winter. But it is weird to notice those like big troughs of like
Yeah.
Um,
Where it's just bone dry for a month or two.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know what it'll be like after I've had many years of full-time self-employment on my belt, if that happens.
Yeah.
But
I mean, 4 to 5 years in, it still happens for me, but I also get most of my work through word of mouth. So that's what I'm hoping, like actually putting some effort into running some ads and getting content out there about my business, not just my clients' businesses,
sure.
will help. So, when we do our 10-year follow-up, I'll let you know how that goes.
Cool. Yeah. I look forward to that. Yeah. We could compare notes on that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any specific plans for the future? That's a broad question.
Yeah.
Maybe too broad. I don't know if you can answer off that or I can narrow it down for you.
Like professionally?
Sure. Yeah. Both. Actually. Yeah. Well, let's focus on the professional. Like, what do you see for yourself? We keep talking about this 10-year, 20-year check-in.
Yeah.
You strike me as a person, I could be inaccurate, that you would have like a multi-year, like 3-year, 5-year, 10-year plan, or am I not reading it? No.
Not a detailed one.
Okay.
I like to have wide goalposts
Okay.
for where I want to go. And right now those goalposts are make more money so I can pay for things. But seriously though, right now what I'm actively working on is, now that I am making enough to like survive,
Yeah.
I want to build my business such that the work is more consistent and the process is a little bit more like refined, where I just kind of have like my bullet list when I get an inquiry. It's like boom, 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 boom.
Building a system.
Yeah,
the system.
the system.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to refine the system right now, and part of that is actually developing the marketing strategy, and because that's a new thing that that's a thing that I have to learn, because I'm good at making marketing content for other people, but how I have never made marketing content for a video production company. So it's been interesting. But down the road, I don't know if I'll stick with video production for forever. I may well, if things are just going well, then that's great. I like the variety, and I really enjoy it. My one thing I'm considering doing as a side hustle in the future is working as a flight instructor, because then you get to be home every night.
Yeah. You recently, I think I saw on social media, you got your pilot's license.
I did.
Private pilot's
license. Yes.
Yeah.
The basic one.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. So that is one of those things that I would like to build the business more to pay for in the future, is getting those extra ratings to the point where I can at least instruct, since I don't want to go to the airlines, but that could still be a way to implement that love for aviation. I don't have the $300,000 Cineflex gimbal that I would need to go and fly planes for video production.
Yeah.
So that's ruled out for now.
Sure.
But that could be cool in the future. I am just not actively pursuing it, but should the opportunity present itself, I wouldn't mind.
Life's funny sometimes.
Yeah.
Things develop and happen in ways we don't plan for.
Anyway, no real concrete plans, but I'd like to just kind of get my system down to the point where it's more controlled and less stressful. So I'm not like worrying about, I hope someone calls this week. I'm getting a little tight on the money.
Yeah.
Yeah. So far there haven't been any emergencies, but still, like I'd like to get to a point where I don't have to worry about it.
You and me both.
Yeah. Don't we all?
It does sound like you are someone who's got, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're more like targeting doing things that like work for you as your life progresses, versus just very like, I'm on the filmmaking path and I'm going to ride this out no matter what. It seems like you're a little bit more flexible.
Totally. Yeah.
With what you'll be doing.
I'm not married to the filmmaking, but
that's a very concise way of putting it.
But for now, it's what I enjoy doing, and it lets me pay the bills. So I get to do what I enjoy and have the variety. I don't really want like just a desk job where I'm stuck inside all day. I love being able to go out and run around at sunset with cameras and get paid to do it. Sure. So for now, it's what I'm going to stick with.
Again, find a lot of similarities between you and me, because that's the same way I am. Is just like, I'll try this, but by the time someone listens to this podcast, X amount of months from now when we actually release it, it's like,
Yeah.
I'll probably still be doing this, but maybe not only this, maybe something else too. Yeah, I'm very similar where I'm not wedded to what I'm doing, but I do enjoy it. And who knows, maybe it is what I'll do.
I think that's a good place to be too, because then if you get to a point where you're not enjoying it,
Yeah.
you're not stuck with it. I know some people that are like just die hard. This is what I'm going to do forever.
Sure.
And I think burnout might be a little bit more real for people that are very set on it, and I still deal with it too.
Sure.
But I don't know. I don't think it's the same where my mindset is more like, I could just go do something else if I really get that miserable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm kind of rambling now.
No. You're rambling good stuff.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. That's what we do. That's what we do on this podcast. We ramble.
Ramble good stuff.
Good stuff. Yeah. That should be the tagline.
Yeah.
Touching on the creating your own marketing material.
Yeah.
Have you been neglecting or hesitant to do that because you're not comfortable like presenting yourself, or is it just like not having time? What's the factors behind that?
I think it's mostly at least convincing myself that I don't have time.
Okay.
I have to give up some other things to do that. But it's also it's a little bit intimidating trying to do that. Like, it's been a long time since I ran a Facebook ad.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to figure that out it just feels kind of overwhelming to try to do it. So I'm trying to baby step it. We use Asana for all of our scheduling stuff. And I just went through and I made an entire like assignment column of marketing tasks. And I just sat down and I spent half an hour thinking of all of the things that I could possibly do to market my business. And I just started putting in assignments. And I didn't date them, but I put them all in there. And then as I have any free chunks of time in my day, I'll just kind of scroll through and pick one. It's like, oh, I can make my aerial reel today. That's what I was doing yesterday.
Gotcha.
Then I can just go and start working on that. And then I can set a due date. If I'm like, okay, I'm going to start on this one. It's going to be due next Thursday or whatever. And at this point now, we're almost into December. It's very slow. It has been for me every December, but I want to take the time that I would be doing client work and spend it building up this marketing content so that next year when I'm busy, I have a pool to just pull from. So that all I have to take the time for is to post it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to take hours to make it. So that's the goal this winter. I said I was going to do that last winter, and I just made a 4-minute demo reel, and I was like, that's it. That's all I got to do. Did not work. So
I've been there with like pouring time and thinking something's going to work out. And then it just like, nope. I'm like, all right, back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
Or back to the grind.
Yep.
That's something I've noticed too, is like, at least self-comparison to benchmarking myself, current day versus like a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Where I would, in past versions of myself, I would put a lot of effort into doing something, say it's making a reel or something, a one-off task, or whether it's producing something or even like trying to connect with someone and form a relationship. And I'd put a lot of effort into whatever the given single task is.
Yeah.
And then I would do it. And then I would just wait. And I would like, I basically what I was doing mentally was like putting a lot of hope and dreams in this one-off event. And I wasn't like I was viewing it through this like almost like, like small little tunnel. And I'm just like, this is the thing that will like change everything else.
Yeah.
And after doing that many times in that one event, whatever it was, not paying off, I realized I'm like, oh no, I just need to view it more as like planting seeds. And you just need to like do that. And it's not just one thing. You need to plant that seed and you need to and just keep moving, plant another one. And whether that first one blooms into something, whether it's getting a job or forming a relationship, what have you, it's like, don't worry about it. Just keep going and keep planting seeds. And so I changed my mentality of how I like approach things. And this is professionally and personally. And it doesn't mean you don't go back and pay attention to it. You go back and water the seeds, but it's like a lot of them don't sprout. And if they do sprout, they don't get very big. I'm talking in like deeper metaphors now, but so hopefully I haven't lost you or any listeners. But
no, I like it. I think that's kind of the realization I had this year.
Yeah.
Your metaphor is very concise. Because that was the thought process that I had. I didn't think of seeds, but I like it.
That's usually how I think is in metaphors. It's a lot easier to think of.
I thought she meant I usually think in terms of seeds.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm a big gardener. No, actually, I'm a terrible gardener. I'm actually have to today shut down my community garden plot after realizing gardening's not for me. At least,
no.
Yeah. Anyways, that's just like a mindset thing I've realized for myself. And yeah, I don't know. You drew it out of me when you were mentioning that, like your last winter compared to your goals for this winter.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I have similar ones this winter where I'm just like, okay, it's slow in December, just do stuff. But
yeah,
I find self-discipline can be a little bit difficult when you're self-employed.
It's so challenging.
Yeah.
I've never like been tested for ADHD, but I think like I just ping pong around between things and I'll hyperfixate on things. Like I struggle sometimes so much. I'm like, I do not want to do video right now. I don't want it. I don't want to edit. No. I'm going to go like, I don't know, run around and take pictures.
Yeah.
It's a struggle. I've gotten better about that, but that for a while, that actually like really hindered my output. And I think that's part of why I struggled so much to go out and advertise for a while. And
sure.
Now I think I've got like the experience and maybe the maturity to sit down and just be like, okay, it's not fun, but just do it. And I think maybe that was because I was so young, or maybe I'm just easily distracted, but
I mean, like most things in life, it's probably a little bit of A, B, and the unknown C and D and E and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I find for myself, I'm very motivated when it comes to like client stuff. Like I can, if there's a deadline or if I promise someone I'm going to do something, it'll be done.
Yeah.
But when it's like the personal stuff, even if it's, I shouldn't just say personal stuff, stuff for my own business that doesn't have another entity behind, like, you know, a client or whoever, like being like, oh, you need to get this done, then it becomes a little bit softer in like the actual deadline.
Yep.
So I tried the calendar thing, like I know a lot of people do like, not just like, I do a digital calendar, but also like the physical, like here's a calendar with like filling it out. And I did that for a few months, but I ended up just neglecting it.
Yep.
But
I tried the whiteboard method.
Yeah. Oh, mine was a calendar whiteboard.
Yeah. I didn't use it as a calendar, but I was trying to do like ongoing projects, the upcoming, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And eventually I switched to Asana because what I did, I would neglect both. And so when the iOS update came out that lets you put the widgets on your home screen, I put this fat Asana widget in the middle of my main home screen on my phone so that I always see like this huge widget every time I open my phone that's like, do this. Hey, it's due. And
did it work?
No. Maybe a little, but
Yeah.
At least then I can see when I'm behind. It's like, hey, just reminding you, you're not doing what you're supposed to.
Right. Yeah. I know. I think that's actually another thing I find too is like giving myself a little bit of grace and not beating myself up over those type of like, I don't even want to label them failures, but like, you know, non-accomplished goals.
Yeah.
Is just like, hey man, Owen, you gave yourself too much to do in this week. Like it was unrealistic for you to get all these tasks done. So it's like, it's okay. Just chip away at them as you can.
Yeah. Totally.
But I mean, again, easier said than done, just like all of this.
Yep. Yeah. It's tough. I definitely have struggled with overbooking. But the high priority things get done most of the time.
Yeah. I mean, that's
especially like client work in particular. It's like I can procrastinate, but it'll be done by the due date. Like,
yeah.
Eventually, you're just like, okay, I could just focus. But
yeah, for sure. I think there's something to be said for being able to like get it done when it matters.
Yeah.
But I think that's another thing I've realized too, especially doing this podcast and talking to a wide gamut of self-employed people in different industries, is just like, I think that's one of the things that was making me scared when I was younger and dabbling in self-employment in my late teens and early 20s, was like, I just had this picture of just like, you needed to be perfect and you needed to be on top of it. Because you only see the outside facing portion of people's businesses.
Yeah.
You don't see on the other side of it. And that's something I realized as I got older. It's just like, oh no, like everyone is human. Outside of like maybe Elon Musk, he's probably an alien, but yeah, everyone has like chaos going in some form or another in various portions of their lives. And like, that's just the reality of like trying to be a human and be, a productive human. You're not going to have full mastery of everything in your life. But yeah, I think for perfectionists like you and me, it's hard to like overcome that.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's shift into, some closing questions. What advice would you have for anyone who's considering a path of self-employment?
Stay on top of your stuff. Like, as we've just discussed, that has been my biggest struggle. I think anyone can do it. You just need to have at least like decent self-discipline to the point that you can meet deadlines for clients, at least. I mean, it sounds like both of us kind of struggle with meeting the personal deadlines. Yep. But neither of us is starving. So I hope you're not.
But, I'm pretty good, yeah.
So I think, it's like, it can be intimidating, but anyone can do it. And hearing that from people definitely helped me. It was like, no, you can do it. And just put yourself out there. The only way to grow your business is to do that. Like, put yourself out there, work with the small clients, and then the bigger clients will come as you go.
That's great advice. Yeah. And so how can people get in touch with you if they're interested in checking out your stuff and what you do?
The best place to access everything would be my website, which is just cascarafilms.com. I do have social media channels, and assuming that I follow through on what I've told you today, they will have stuff on them by the time this comes out.
Yeah.
So you guys can check me on that.
Yeah. Okay, so there's some accessibility for you.
Yeah, there we go. Everyone watching this podcast can come and like shame me in the comments if my socials still say last post 2021 on them.
Hey, I took a 3-year hiatus from Instagram because I just got burnt out. So no shame there.
All the social media and the YouTube are linked on like in the footer on my website. There's also like a contact form. But my email is just chance@cascarafilms.com.
Perfect. Cool. We'll share that in the show notes here too as well, so
Sweet.
people can get an easy direct to it. Well, Chance, thank you so much. It's been a great conversation. Really enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna do that. Okay, yeah.
I'm doing it.
Yeah, we're doing it. Okay. And there you have it. It was a really fun conversation with Chance. A lot of parallels, as you heard, between both what we do and I guess our approach, really. So that was really fun. If you want to hear more conversations with different types of entrepreneurs and self-employed people, then please subscribe and follow the podcast. Until then, this has been The Bossless Path. Catch you next time.